Do you see it on your end? No, mine doesn't show it
We
yet.
are live now. We're live.
Okay.
Excellent.
Welcome
Yes.
everyone to another Facebook Live with Dr. Nelva Bryant. My name is Greta Russo. Dr. Nelva Bryant, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening and following along with us. My name is Dr. Nelva Bryant. I'm a veterinarian and I work in the airline industry. I work with Delta Airlines and was brought on staff to review and revise the policies for animal transportation. And it's a wonderful opportunity for me, and I'm thankful to be able to share in that environment. And hopefully what I'm doing is assisting animal transportation worldwide, basically. We started When Pets Fly years, I swear it feels like forever, Greta, but we've been doing this for almost 3 years, I guess. And loving every minute of it, loving the opportunity to share information with our followers regarding animal transportation. Sometimes we focus on pets, sometimes we focus on service animals, we focus on zoo animals. We focus on different methods to transport your pets by air. Last week we had someone from Avalar Pets, which is a jet company that transports pets by jet service. So trust me, we're touching kind of all different stakeholders in the animal transportation industry is what I always say. So that's what we're doing with the Facebook Lives. Greta, I always want you to introduce yourself too, because you're a strong part of what we do. I don't think I could do this without you, so please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Greta Russo, and I have been working with Dr. Bryant since the beginning in just sharing the message of When Pets Fly and all of the people and resources that come our way so that everyone has information in order to help animals travel safe as well as healthy. So that's me. So, but we've got a lot going on in the world. First of all, today's the 19th, so I guess we're about a week and a half counting down to August 1st. And we have continued to remind people about the CDC changes. And then, of course, today you were saying to me at a meeting, oh, did you know about the blackout? And so, we hope you all are surviving the blackout that's going on with the airlines as well as the banks and everything. But Dr. Bryant, please remind everyone about the CDC stuff.
Actually, you know what? When you first started saying August 1st countdown, I thought you meant the countdown to our newsletter. I was like, yeah, it's coming. But no, that's the positive. We have a newsletter on August 1st. So that's great news. The other August 1st deadline that's approaching is with CDC, their dog importation regulations. They have made significant changes to them that, like I said, become effective on August 1st. And boy, oh boy, I've been analyzing them and they are really, really stringent. So I would just highly recommend for your pet owners traveling. And actually, I'm sorry, I can't even say pet owners. This is going to impact traveling with your pets and your service dogs coming into the United States or returning to the United States. Please work with your veterinarian closely. The requirements are extremely stringent if you go to what CDC has deemed a high risk rabies endemic country. So be aware of that. So, but yeah, it's very, very stringent regulations. Again,
So let me ask this. So we've been repeating talking about pet parents and prepare for August 1st. But I wanted to ask, and I guess because of our guests coming on, it has me thinking, well, does this new regulation apply to zoo transportation? Does it apply to what was I going to say? Like people who are breeders? Does it apply to gosh, I'm sorry. Something just distracted me.
I mean, there's a lot of other dogs that come in the country. You think about there's military working dogs. Does it apply to them? What else is there?
What about breeders? Do they have to be
breeders? Well, in certain breeders, what they do is they get their new, new, you can say, stock to get diversity with their breed. They might get it from another country and bring it here and then raise it and breed it to bring some diversity to their, I guess, their breeding stock. But it will impact them because all dogs, there's a series of things all dogs must have. They must be healthy, of course. They must be at least 6 months of age. So that does impact the breeders because most breeders or most people getting dogs from out of the country want puppies, at least maybe 12 to 16 weeks of age. They have to be 6 months of age to enter the U.S. So it will impact them. It's going to also impact the rescue. I believe the rescue dogs as well. Say if an organization wants to rescue, go somewhere and rescue a bunch of dogs and bring them to the United States. And that happens quite often, actually. I'm kind of...
And there's a lot of working dogs.
Clarification on that. Say it again. I'm sorry. There's
a lot of working dogs that come from Europe. So I guess they have to adhere to this as well.
All dogs do, but there's some things with CDC's regulations that aren't fully clear and it's not fully defined. My recollection of the regulations, if dogs coming to the U.S. for sell and adoption, say in groups, and that's, say, like, again, rescue dogs, even if you rescue them, technically they're going to sell them or they're going to be adopted out. So dogs coming to the country for sale and adoption fall under USDA's regulations, and they have a series of requirements and permits that's needed for that. And 6 months of age also is the limit on that. Then there's CDC, which used to be more for personal pets, not owned. I mean, that were owned, I'm sorry, that were owned. And yes, you brought another valid point. What if a zoo species is a canine? It could be.
It's a hyena.
I know, but I don't believe I don't think so. I think it falls under U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for that. But again, that's all these things again. It would be nice if CDC could clarify all these different realms and requirements. Will make it easier for everyone. But one thing I definitely do know, personal pets and your service dog traveling with you, coming into the country for the first time or returning to the country, you will have to comply with CDC's regulations starting on August 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then the other August 1st news to share is that our newsletter for August is coming out. So if you're not signed up for our newsletters, definitely go to the website and you can just fill out the form that is on the homepage to get our newsletter. Yeah. And everyone check out our snazzy little t-shirts.
Got our snazzy shirts on. This was my idea, but it was great. We definitely needed it. Actually, I think he picked the color too. So this was great. Going back to the August 1st, though, with the newsletter, I'm working on my creative juices every chance I get. I think you guys are going to be happy. We are going to have some repeat things such as the breed report, but we're going to add some other dogs breeds that we haven't discussed in the past. So just getting the creative juices going. I think you guys are going to enjoy this newsletter.
Absolutely. So we have, I just want to announce real quick, I know that we have a flyer that is out that has our month of Facebook Lives, but I just wanted to say real quick that next Friday we won't have a Facebook Live that was supposed to be scheduled with Dr. Adam Chrisman as he has somewhere else to be that is very important, but we will bring him, we're rescheduling him for later on in the year. I know lots of people love to tune in to hear him, and I just wanted to let people know in advance. So,
perfect. Thank you.
We have another.
We'll have him back. Trust me, he's coming back. He's a very good supporter of us. We both have high regard for each other, so it's great.
Yes. But we have another fan favorite on deck today, which is Miss Rochelle Watkins. Now, is it Watkins Rogers or just Watkins? Well, I'll ask her when she comes on.
Yeah, I always forget. I forget, sorry.
But everybody loves Rochelle. She is the zoo transport specialist. Everyone in the world refer to Rochelle. for her expertise. And today she is coming on to share more of her zoological travel tales. So I'm really excited to get the conversation going with her as well. So
awesome.
Let's see. Well, let's pull Miss Rochelle into the screen, and let's see. Hi, Miss Rochelle.
Hello.
How are you? Well, you know,
Michelle Watkins Rogers, because I don't have a middle name, so I use my maiden name because I've been around 53 years, more than 53 years in zoos, but I'm known by different groups of people. Some just know me as Watkins. Some know me after I got married and divorced. So I'm running from the law. That's my story.
okay, and we're sticking to it. Well, no matter who you are, Miss Rochelle, we are so happy to have you. And we are, even though I don't have an introduction for you, I'm still going to give you an applause for joining us on Facebook Live.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have coordinated what we did, guys. Before we started, we told her she must wear a teal shirt to match us. So that's what
it was a mind meld because I at the last minute picked this color. I had a different colored shirt on, and I was like, it looks kind of and so I went back and I went that color, and it just so we had the mind meld.
Yes, we did
the Vulcan mind meld.
Yeah,
great minds think alike.
Definitely.
So, Rochelle, before we dive into it, please just tell everybody quickly what you do now that you're retired.
Sure. So I retired in March of 2021. But while I was still working, I was doing things that were more like special projects. They were professional courtesy assistance to other zoos and private people and people that the zoo dealt with. So I would tell people when I retire, I plan on doing this to, keep myself busy so I don't get bored, Well, I'm working just as hard now as I was then. And I'm doing it because it's more like I'm giving back to the community for all of the things and people that I've worked with, things that I've learned over the years, the animals I've worked with. I wish I had somebody that explained stuff to me or was available, when things came up. Even if I don't know, I know somebody that might be able to help you or a government contact or something like that. So any way to give back is a good thing to do for the animals, people and animals.
Fantastic. Well, let's see. Today's topic with Miss Rochelle, we are going to go into, did it pop up? Transport of neonatal animals. This should be fun.
Yeah.
So,
very good.
So, Rochelle, have you had personal experience with transporting babies?
I have mostly mammal species. I mean, they're probably like helping out with a rehab for a bird or something like that, but it's primarily been mammal species, primates, hoofstock, and then in other capacities with knowing the processes for shipping like amphibian eggs, and you were talking earlier about rabies zones and quarantining. It does affect zoo people, actually, I think just as much or more at times, because it's an exotic species and there's other disease issues that other countries worry about besides rabies. But for like island countries like Trinidad, it's the same like it is with the UK. You got to have 6 months of not even in the wildlife in your neighborhood can come up positive. And the zoo, we were trying to export some giant otters to Colombia, and we were in a rabies quarantine zone. The zoo was right in the middle of it for a year.
Wow.
So it's serious business. It really disrupts animal transport, then you do all that planning leading up and working with the animal and making all these arrangements, and then you have to like wait another 6 months. Then you check in again, and then if they find one animal that, like a raccoon from the park next door, that was positive, it's another 6 months.
Yeah. Rabies is a big deal. I'll be honest. I remember prior to doing what I'm doing, I worked within CDC for many years, and I used to wonder why was within CDC the rabies division is huge, and I always wondered to myself, it's like rabies is rabies, right? Rabies is rabies, but it isn't. There's so many different variants of rabies that are transmitted by certain animal species. The one issue with the requirements for coming into the country and the rabies requirements is because CDC wants to prevent the reintroduction of canine variant rabies in the U.S. Now, we have other types of variants of rabies in raccoons or what have you, but in the canine species, it's been eradicated since 2007, and they're trying to prevent the reintroduction. So I applaud them for doing that, but
it makes life difficult.
Yes, that's all. And so it's got to be another way.
They even at the zoo went through working with the public health department and CDC, and did for certain number of cycles of rabies treatments to the wildlife, where they threw these packets out and treated the raccoons and possums and animals that were in the area for rabies. It was like a eaten inoculation. So they don't just focus on the zoo animals, it's also the animals around us. Our animals could be negative and be vaccinated, and the people be treated and be fine, but if the wildlife around you, they don't want to take a chance.
I don't blame it, because you can't really control the wildlife. Even though you might have barriers up around the zoo, there can be still a raccoon, a possum, or something that's going to be here. So, makes sense.
So is it possible for the rabies variants, I know they're different to different breeds, but is it possible for one variant to get over to another animal or another breed?
Yes.
If a dog got bitten by a raccoon, would the dog get it from?
Yes. Okay. When they do the testing, they'll realize the variant of it. And trust me, they'll test it, and they can actually determine the variant of rabies that the dog was exposed to.
I think where people get confused is like the incubation period, the vaccines, if a person gets exposed, and also can it carry it latently, or would it die if it had it at all? That's why they always say, certain species, you don't have to worry as much, because they can't, if they had it, they'd be dead or they'd be sick.
But there was no clinical signs faster.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think
if now
confused about.
No, it's nothing to play with.
I remember when I was a little girl, the big concern was rabid raccoons or a rabid dog. And, and how they have rabies is because, they're growling and snarling and they're coming after you. So is that, not that I want to doubt my teacher or anything.
No, they do.
Is that still?
When we were in that quarantine for a year, there were bats in different parts of Florida. Even though we were in the quarantine zone for a year, there was other parts of Florida that experienced other rabies incidents. Bats, foxes, otters, North American otters. There were incidents of either capturing sick animals or the animals coming in contact with people and having to be put down to see,
Yeah, and just back up one quick second. As far as the clinical signs, Greta, they describe it as being more like there could be a furious form where they're aggressive, growling, salivating, and everything like that. But then also, depending on the animal species, there could be a dummy, like lethargic form too. So it varies depending on the animal. It could vary probably within each type of animal or different animal species. I can tell you, when I was in vet school, it was so interesting. Our freshman year of vet school, We had a project where we all had to do, basically we were supposed to check out this cow, and we all, well, I didn't do it, I watched, but folks were going in, they were doing examinations of this one particular cow. Everybody, majority of folks were doing it. Guess what? The cow found out it had rabies. Everybody that touched it was exposed. Thank goodness, though, as far as post-exposure, all those maybe we already, as far as going to vet school, we had to be immunized against rabies. So if anything, they had to just get a booster and everything. But imagine for someone who's never been exposed and never had the rabies prophylaxis, and they do this, so you just have to be careful with animals. So many, the interesting thing is with animals is that people don't realize they can't speak to us. So they were working on the clinical signs, thinking it was somewhere, they thought basically it was something related around his head and throat. And lo and behold, after it was, I guess, necropsy, they found out it had rabies. So got to be careful.
So
but again,
is it good to assume that canine rabies is eradicated, but all other rabies are still around?
In the U.S., we do have other versions, as Rochelle mentioned, in foxes, I believe, raccoons, mongooses, and I think in Puerto Rico. So it all depends. And bats.
Well, and even not just with rabies, but any region of the United States, depending on its climate and weather. Like we have in South Florida, tropical illnesses, like they say the mosquito is the #1 most dangerous animal in the world. And we have Asian illnesses from mosquitoes. We have South American, we have African, chikungunya, Zika, so it's like our part of the United States has totally different regulations because of the diseases that are there. So that's why you got to check to leave and to go into someplace.
You do.
The health certificate has to match, and each health agency has to agree that that animal has met the requirement.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
I think one country we had 3 or 4 shipments. One country we had a 13-page questionnaire that we had to fill out and send to the health agency, and it had to do with also the medical history of the zoo, where it was, a map of it, what kind of, it was stringent.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, we were supposed to be talking about baby wild animals, and somehow
It's not wild.
We're giving you what you didn't even need. No, you needed that education. You needed
that. Was a bonus.
Yes.
We did the bonus.
Yes.
Bonus up front.
There we go. Well, to get us back on track, let's start with this question. Can infant zoo animals be transported, and how are they transported?
Okay. Yes, and very carefully. So there are different, you were asking me about a cat. I have an experience of coordinating a shipment for a pet cat of mine from the East Coast to the West Coast, but also, and she was kind of an older cat. And then also one that was like an infant that was going, well, there was two infants, I think. They were going to another zoo, like I think it was Nashville or something like that. And the curators drove the animals there and fed it along the way because they were so aged, they were not weaned yet. And they needed to be hand raised by the people that were going to them because they were going to be ambassador animals. So, different ways of hand raising for different purposes require different preparation for transport. And so and I've worked with baby primates in research where they don't usually, a smaller place that's breeding primates, they don't have a nursery. Even smaller zoos don't have nurseries because you don't have enough volume to require the staff to have a facility. So that's why a lot of times these confiscations at the ports or things that come up from imports or exports kind of are specialized problems because there's not a particular volume of that age, size, species, whatever. But now, like Dr. Bryant constantly brings up about the dogs. I mean, I started watching that National Geographic show about the ports.
Mhm.
Oh my God. The people with the dogs that are trying to bring them in, and they take a picture of their teeth
Yep.
and send it off to the CDC and say, is this animal old enough to be imported? And
Wow.
they had fake health certificate information. One guy, they had to let him go. He had a doctor's letter saying that the dogs were his emotional support.
Yeah,
So,
well, you
they're
can,
all different kinds of.
yeah, you can see why CDC has done what they've done regarding being more stringent. So that's important.
Yes.
But let me back up a little bit about your zoo animals a little bit here. You've experienced it, which is great. But as far as I could just say, and I don't know all airlines, I just know within Delta, as far as our infant zoo animals, say mammals, all animals being transported by cargo would have to be weaned and able to sustain themselves on their own. That's one major thing there. And weaning age, again, it will depend upon a different type of animal. There's no set limit on that. I mean, I know they say for primates have to be at least 2 years of age. I'm sorry, to be transported by cargo and everything. So there are specific.
Well, it depends on the species. Because a 2-year-old chimp and a 2-year-old tamarin is two different life stages.
Probably, you're correct, but I would say we kind of in general just say primates. But you're right; it would depend, and what we would follow is IATA as far as their regulations regarding that, because it should be in there. But either way, I can tell you, there's a lot of folks that want to transport by cargo a lot of different bird species. I don't know why the little baby birds, parrots or parakeets, they want to send them as babies, but they are not, as they call, fledged. They should be fully feathered and fledged or able to sustain themselves without being hand fed. And that's a common thing that I don't know. From what I had a conversation with someone that was in the bird industry, and they said that it's customary that they send birds when they're, young like that. And it's like, it's not, it doesn't comply with IATA regarding that. You want them to be able to sustain themselves on their own. So the risk with that.
Yeah.
What does fledge mean?
Also, that's cargo. A lot of people don't understand cargo and in cabin is two different requirements.
Right. But to be aware, though, I'll get you 1 second, or 1 quick second. I'm sorry. Fledge means able to sustain themselves. They're feathered and everything. Very important, because some birds aren't feathered as when they're hatched. You got your baby chicks that are fuzzy little things, and they can sustain themselves on their own because they're feeding off their internal yolk, I think, that's in their body still. Other birds, and with the feathers, they can insulate themselves. The other birds that are not feathered at that young age, they don't do well with cold and even warm. It's not ideal for them because they're not able to regulate their body temperatures as well, or insulate themselves if it's cold or something like that. So that's more fledging, is for, again, feathered and able to sustain themselves without being hand fed, basically.
Right. Yeah, and also people need to understand, there's a lot of regulations out there, a lot of different types of animal industry. Like animals that are used for food are treated differently than animals that are in zoos or that are pets. So like if you have a day-old chick, a zoo is not going to ship a day-old chick, and definitely not by postal service, but it's legal to do that for food industry because it's a totally different use or purpose of the animal. And that's why also like aquariums have issues, because there's a lot more fish shipped for food than there is for aquariums. I'm assuming, because there's a lot more people than there are aquariums in the world. And, it's just really, and that's what I bought my own IATA LAR. So I'm a proud owner. It's an expensive book. But I'm a proud owner now of, I'm reading and going through the different parts of it. And that's why like after reading some of these things, it's like, God, no wonder we always used to have a problem with that, or that's what they meant by that and not this. And it's really becoming like an educational tool for me too, for a deeper dive into requirements for transport. And that's only transport by air. uh, CITES and IATA signed an MOU that they would recognize the CITES ground transport as what's regulated or what is required for ground, and then IATA is for air. Because for every air transport, there has to be 2 ground transport. You got to get the animal to the airport, and then you got to pick it up and bring it to where it's going. So there's actually 2 ground transports for every air transport, and things can happen along the way there too.
And FYI, for those who are not aware what CITES and everything, CITES is, oh gosh, committee.
Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species.
What it's for is it's basically it's an organization that protects animals that are endangered or coming to being extinct. So there's specific requirements for transporting those animals. They're based under CITES. If they're traveling internationally, you're going to have all these permits and everything through CITES for that to allow. And how Rochelle is very familiar with it is because you're in the zoo animal industry or zoo animals, a lot of them could be endangered or close to extinction. So there you go.
Yeah, and what people also, the Convention of the Parties is like a committee of countries, and they meet every interval that they meet, and when they get together, there's underrepresentation for zoos and aquariums and conservation organizations, because the purpose of it is sort of the opposite of what you'd think. It's like they want to know how much they can do, and on the other side for conservationists, we want to know how much they can minimize something to protect the animals in the wild. And so overfishing, diseases that are killing animals worldwide, all of the climate, ecological changes that are killing animals because they can't sustain themselves as populations. This is all, we're all intertwined in this whole web of biology.
Yeah. Yeah. Just want to also tagging off our first question a little bit. I'm sorry. If a zoo animal is being transported and it's a baby, you're going to have to probably work with the airline to get special permissions to transport it in cabin, and just get special permissions in reference to that. There are situations too, I know, with certain birds will have to be in incubators. The incubator definitely will not be allowed by cargo. Yeah, you would have to see about making arrangements to travel in cabin in reference to that and get special permissions. So,
yeah, there's a lot of hoops to ship animals that way. And in the 80s, the Miami Metro Zoo, when I was a zookeeper there, we imported a family of, it was 3 generations of the same family of Sumatran orangutans. And so the baby was too young to be shipped with the mother and cargo. So the lead keeper, like area supervisor, was in cabin because, even when he cried, he was like, and he wasn't going to poop big poops and all, so he wasn't going to be, he was covered up. People could hardly see him, and then the mother was in the cargo. And then we reunited them when we got them to the zoo. And we had to knock her out to put the baby in with her because, we wanted to have control of it. And we didn't want her to be excited when she saw the baby, like she was trying to battle with us to get her kid, So they kind of like calmed her down.
That her wake up and the baby's right next to her. She's
Yeah, and I had to work with a baby, the older baby, mother reared. She got pneumonia. And what people don't realize about orangutans is that they have their lungs, but they also have a throat sac. And the females have it too, but it's small. So you don't see it as much as with the males. those big fleshy pouches of skin, there's another air sac under there, but they use it primarily for vocalizations. So if a baby gets a lung issue and they're an orangutan, they have a double problem, because if it gets infected in the air sac, that's a separate system that it can still be latent in the body that they have this infection or whatever. So it has to be treated with, pretty strong, real acute treatment of antibiotics before it's given back to the mom. And then, the mom lets us give the baby stuff to give her subsequent, treatments and stuff. But yeah, that was, so we had to constantly be listening to her breathing.
Hey guys, we got a question. I don't know can you see it, Greta?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
the person is saying that they're told, if you don't mind, I'll say, they have been told on several occasions that no animals other than dogs and cats can travel in cabin. Again, that is a routine. As far as
it isn't, but it's a long process. It's the same thing as going through the process for people to be in jump seats on a on a cargo jet or something like that. You have to do background checks. They have to have copies of your identification, and with the airlines, and the airlines, the zoos that have been successful, they have people that liaise with these entities and they have a relationship with them. And I know, like in Miami, a big supporter that really helped the zoo a lot was the relationship that Ron McGill had with a lot of different entities. And on a number of occasions, my personal experience with him is that he helped us facilitate a cheetah import, sloth imports. There was a number of things where we had to really negotiate, and he knew somebody, they had a meeting, they explained, you have to be able to explain your protocol, your process,
everything.
These requirements for IATA have to be met. They have to see. So a lot of times people fail based on lack of information. So they're looking at nothing. They don't have anything to make a judgment call. And you have to have the right level contact for that. So that's why, shipping an animal, the air flight is ours, but the beginning and the end of it takes a lot more work. And it's a lot to keep up with if you have a lot of different species like large major zoos do.
Yep. So for Marnie, I definitely, routinely you will be told no. You have to have everything.
I've worked with Marnie. She's in Miami.
You have to have everything organized for that to happen and get special permissions. Don't think that it is your right to do so. So you have to get special permission and show proof.
Yeah, the sloths from Panama came in cabin.
Yeah.
On American Airlines, and we've had in my time, I worked for the county for 30 years. In my time with Miami-Dade County, there were multiple in cabin, and not that long ago. And other zoos are still doing it. But like I said, it's not you just make the reservation. It's a process that you have to go through.
Yeah, get permissions.
You have to show that you're meeting their requirements. I always tell people, they go, oh, well, so-and-so said this. I go to that agency and get the checklist. Don't get the checklist from somebody else. It could be outdated. It could be somebody that's misinterpreting something. It could be something that is even by the wildlife agencies interpreted differently than it was before. So something that used to be okay is now viewed differently. So, and it's because of changes in animal medicine. There are things that we can combat that are not a problem now that used to be a problem.
Yeah, definitely. Great question. What else we got there? What other questions?
So are there any wild animals that cannot get on in a flight?
In cabin or in cargo?
In cabin.
Both. Both.
Well, in cabin, please don't bring your snake. There was someone fairly recently asked if they could bring a snake in a soft-sided carrier. No. not happening.
There was at Port of Miami. There was a snake in a baby snake in a eyeglass case, and he was wearing it on him, and he went through the X-ray. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
He tried to get it in cabin, the back doorway. That's called smuggling.
That's called smuggling. And we're going to have that conversation soon too about smuggling, folks. Well, we'll just bring it briefly. Folks need to realize if you go some places, smuggling is bad. Actually, Delta is a member of United for Wildlife. We're very happy about that. Don't know if folks are aware of that. United for Wildlife actually was originated by Prince William. That's his major initiative, and with the Buckingham Palace, and it's just a really good thing to have. Again, Delta is a member of it, and we do take wildlife trafficking or prevention of wildlife trafficking very, very seriously. And it's interesting because people trap wildlife trafficking with wildlife trafficking or smuggling an animal. It impacts the zoos. It impacts the whole environment, to be honest with you, as far as bringing some animal here that does not belong here. So, but yeah, very important topic. And we're hoping to have your good friend, Sarah Walker, come talk to us about that very soon too. Yeah.
Sarah's cool. Sarah used to be a pilot too, and had her own company with wildlife trafficking. And that's how she came to be in AZA. And so she had all this history and background before she started doing what she's doing now, which is kind of combination of all that different stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you feed infant animals during the transport?
So it depends on the species, the age, if it's land or air. It would still be a same situation. You'd still have to jump through hoops if you wanted to do an in-cabin with a real young animal, like that baby orangutan was that was named Clipper after the Clipper jet, but that was Pan Am Airlines. Pan Am doesn't exist anymore. So, and things have changed a lot over the years because of different incidents that happen. But I also, think people don't realize, they think, oh, the regulations don't apply to me. There's a regulation that applies to everybody about something. I mean, even the intermediate handlers, and that's why, people need to keep their eyes and ears open on changes that are going on with USDA, because they're changing their regulations, which have not been changed in 70 years. And transport has changed a lot, since then. I saw this. It was sort of like a drawing, but it was in a magazine from 1932 or 33. And it was showing this dog in a bag that was attached to the side of the vehicle. And it was a hunting dog. And the idea was they transported the dog hanging in this bag on the outside of the car so they could quickly release him to go, and it's like, really? But that was a real thing they did. That was considered an okay way to transport a dog.
I'm glad we've evolved since that time frame. My goodness.
I know. Things change.
But yeah, some of these, as you're saying, these regulations, people need to stay on top of them because they are making changes to them now. Like as CDC's making their changes. USDA animal welfare regulations. I don't know. I think I told you guys before, they developed that in 1966, and it's amazing. Things have changed, but the regulations have not changed accordingly.
Right. It's like a catch up.
Yes.
That's why, and they also got birds included now. So that's like a new area that they're covering. They've never covered before.
Yep.
And all of these agencies rely on funding and staffing to expedite the implementation of these programs. And a lot of times people don't realize that they can do more to help animals by just trying to find out how they can support being able to do these initiatives. And it's really for the safety and health of the animals and the people, because there's a lot of zoonotic diseases out there, and they're finding more all the time.
Right. As far
Do
as
the same container requirements apply to infant animals as the adults?
No,
just to do,
because a lot of it is
well,
size, weight,
depends.
age. Like if it's a young animal, you can maybe put two of them together in the same crate. But
Sure.
if it's an older animal, they can only, and that happened with the cheetahs. We had to actually make another crate because they got too old to ship together. Young animals, if you're transporting them, if it's an ape or a primate, if they're an infant, they're just like a human. They're helpless. They can't walk or anything. So the containment of that size and age of an animal is different than an adult male that's like 250 pounds and very aggressive and can hurt you, and strong, 10 times stronger than a human, So there are, to a certain extent, but there's also limits of, beginning and ending ages, weights, life stages, and all of that afterwards would have to be some way of getting authority from multiple agencies, not just the commercial transporter, but also the wildlife regulations, and sometimes they give exemptions for things. So that's why you can never really answer a question directly, because there's so many variables to the situation that could or could not apply.
That's true. I initially was going to say it was the same, but you are correct. You brought up all the different variables because not every situation is the same with them. You're right. Even with dogs and cats, animal welfare regulation says they have up to their 6 months of age. You can have two puppies or two kittens in a container by themselves. Together, ship them together. But after that certain age limit, it's not allowed. So you're right. There are some variations regarding it. And then also some young, say we're talking about birds, they might hatch. So the requirements there might be different than an adult. So, yeah.
Yeah, when I was doing the permit for the American flamingo eggs, Zoo Miami was the hub, and all the zoos would come to Florida, pick up their flamingo eggs, and then take them back to their zoos. And after 1 year's collection, I got a call from the registrar at the zoo, at one of the zoos that was on the permit. And she goes, Rochelle, I don't know how to accession this flamingo. And I go, well, the same as all the other ones. Well, she goes, well, this one hatched out in the air. It didn't get here yet. So the birthplace is the airplane and it's not the zoo. And how do you do that? And so, yeah, they can hatch in transit. So, and, amphibian eggs, Puerto Rican crested toads, they hatch in hours. Once an egg mass starts hatching, and if they're trying to ship eggs for release to the wild, they want to release those teeny tiny animals, to a certain area, and there's only certain areas where they can release them. And so you'll have some of these masses where the eggs haven't all hatched out yet, and they'll hatch out when they get there. So you call it an egg mass of so and so many hundreds or thousands of eggs. It's records keeping for babies for different, depending on what kind of baby it is, can be, a coral baby. It's like a frag. It's like a plant, but it's considered a living thing. So you accession the main plant, and then those are all a part of it. That's how you keep track of the genetics.
Are there specific planes just for transporting zoo animals? Or specific airlines?
Zoos or aquariums, what they'll do is, depending on the species, like when we imported the male elephant from Australia, he was the only piece of cargo on the plane other than the 4 people that came with him. When I flew with 2 infant primates to New York for a TV show one time, on a FedEx jump seat, and they were in cargo behind the netting in their crates. But once we got up in the air, I could do myself from the jump seat, go check them, feed them, do whatever, then put them back. I could even, like, take them out if they felt distressed, and then put them back in, and then go back to my jump seat. And it was as if I had my pet dog, because they were so young that they couldn't be left unattended. So you send an attendant to go with the animal.
So
And
what she's describing is certain animals have to be on a freighter, or can be freighter, and need an attendant with them. And it all depends on the species. IATA, the LAR will dictate that also and tell you with it. I know someone fairly recently was asking to send a young foal. They said that was the size of a Great Dane and it should fit in the largest pet crate. And we wound up telling it no, because according to IATA, they needs to be on a freighter with an attendant. And I don't care if it's the size of a Great Dane. We don't do that. We don't ship horses on a commercial airline. It's not in accordance with IATA. So,
yeah. So, like, if somebody's ever taken a baby on a plane, the baby doesn't understand what's happening.
mm-hmm.
And this is actually with all life stages of animals. They hear things, they smell things, they see things, their container gets moved around. In extreme cases, it may be accidentally turned upside down. That's why the arrows have to be in a certain direction. And the crates are made a certain way where the windows are only at the top. So if you see windows at the bottom, something's wrong. But all of those things you need to be desensitized to be calm, so that you don't get overheated when you're in your crate, because you could be in a good crate, the right kind, the right size, with the right accessories and bedding and everything and airflow. But if the animal is in there freaking out, jumping up and down, it's going to go into a stage of hyper excitement that causes biological changes in their body. And that's why each species could have a different temperature range. Like with zoo animals, they'll say, oh, well, they're in Miami. They withstand triple digits. Yeah, but they got a pool in the exhibit. Mm-hmm. The zoo doesn't leave them out there in a box, in the sun. They have amenities to cool down or choose to be in the shade or near, ventilation, but in a crate, they don't have the choice to go anywhere else. And that's why these regulations, which seem very strict at times when you're trying to accomplish a goal, it could be a worthy goal. And there was something I learned recently from a couple of different pilots, that there's this condition of the human mind where we get so focused on the end result that we're missing the warning flags as we zoom past them. And you get to a certain tipping point where you either can't stop yourself, you get so involved in the process that you're not stopping and thinking about what's actually happening in front of you. And they have a name for it and everything. But, and if anybody wants to know what that is, I have all the materials. I'll send them to you. Just contact Greta, send her the question. But I really have seen that in, when you're on a time limit, and a lot of times it happens when an institution is worried about how much money they've already spent. Okay, if you ship an elephant, it's $500,000, $1 million. It's not a $300 plane ticket. So at what point, who says go, no go? And I've even heard from pilots that there are checklists that they have, and they go back and forth with the maintenance about things, about checking about, is that cargo pressurized and climate controlled or not? Because if it is, and there's an animal on their manifest that they're shipping an animal, because they have to tell the pilot if there's an animal on the flight and where it is, and they find a deficit, they can stop the plane for improper, loading of an animal that can't fly on that plane. So there's all different kinds of checks and balances along the way. And the reason that the industry is so strict and goes by what the person doing the job feels from their experience is because they're trying to prevent problems and mistakes and accidents and emergency.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, our good friends, the ARC, they actually were preparing and getting ready to ship all of the Olympic team horses over to Paris.
Oh yeah.
So it's pretty exciting seeing their social media reels and these majestic beasts that were just as calm as can be. I didn't realize they had to have travel boots, and like I guess they would have all kinds of protective gear, but it was pretty interesting to watch their social feed on that.
Horses are constantly being transported because if you have a horse and if you want to go somewhere with it, um, or the vet has to come and see it, but the vet isn't in your state and you got to take it to the vet. It's not like taking your dog to the vet. They have to learn to be in a trailer.
Mm.
Also, for evacuations, if there's an emergency, they have to be trained to go in a trailer. So there's a lot of conditioning with people that own horses, unless they have them just on an estate, wild horses. And that's why a lot of them are so calm when they get transported. It's an everyday thing. It's just a longer everyday thing that they're used to doing, and that's where a lot of times with zoo animals, they don't get shipped all the time. They'll only get shipped for a purpose and for, either a new exhibit, overpopulation, emergencies, all those different things can cause a shipment to have to take place. So, but it's not something that happens throughout their lifetime. The vet comes to them because we have on-staff vets. The animal keepers come to them. Everybody comes to the animal in a zoo situation, and they don't go unless it's a specialized thing. Sometimes there are consulting vets that have specialized equipment that the zoo vet doesn't have, or they're a specialist in eyes or lungs or heart, and they may be a consulting vet on a procedure, and they might have to take them to that vet's office, and that's a different kind of transport, because sometimes those transports are done under anesthesia, because once the vet knocks the animal down, they only have so much time they can keep the animal down, and they don't want to, if they're having open heart surgery and they can't do it at the zoo, they don't want to take a gorilla, on the road alive and then try and get it to go to sleep for the procedure. So they have to have it prepped just like a person has to be prepped before they go into the surgery room. So a lot of complications.
Definite.
Does the zoo practice transporting animals in transportation?
When they're conditioning an animal, they do. So we weren't going to talk about the baboon, but she's like such a perfect example. I worked in this park where we did presentations with small primates, and this was back in the 90s. And so I had to, and my people have to understand where I'm coming from. A veterinarian comes from a certain point of view. That's like a human doctor. They take an oath, that they won't cause any harm and that they'll try and help and protect. And so as a animal caretaker, when I look at a problem, I try and learn the regulations. But if I'm a zookeeper, that's not my job to know that. That's somebody else's problem. They want me to focus on the animal. So I take that focus. And what's the best thing for her? To be used to it, to not be scared, to have experienced it, to, it's just like doggy daycare, So I got this and they wanted me to take her in cabin. And she was supposed to go in the space under the seat in front of me, like a suitcase or something. So I got her a soft-sided crate for her, and it was like a duffel bag looking thing, but she could see through it. And I just started walking around the building that I was in. Then I'd put her in it and I'd walk around the park with her. And after a while, for her, it was like a fun thing. She got to people watch. She got to smell things. She got to, so the novelty was an attraction to not freak out. Well, that was all perfect until we get in the plane. She wasn't used to being in a confined area, so she got nervous. So I had to put my hand in there. But before we boarded the plane, which caused her to start getting nervous, they made me take her out of the crate in the open area instead of like maybe going to a back room or something, because they didn't want to put her through the x-ray. But I said, I don't think you understand. This is a baby baboon. She's going to get upset when she gets out, and she's going to be more upset when I go to put her back in, because she's going to see a lot of stuff she's never seen before. And they wouldn't let me do it. And so I said, okay. She was fine when she came out because she's like, Mom. And then I go, okay, now you got to go back in. She started screaming. People were looking around. What is that? God, it's the ugliest baby I ever saw. You know?
Oh.
But it was, I knew my animal, and I knew what she would tolerate. So that started a spin of events. And it can be a change, you know, while they're being transported, that might be a backfire of a car that freaked them out. And from there on, think of, you know, like you're watching a scary movie, one thing happens and then you get nervous, and another thing happens and you scream, and another thing happens and you hit the person next to you. You know, it escalates. And that's what happens with animals. They don't think the same way we do, but their senses are more acute, and more things bother them easier. And sometimes we're not even aware, unless you really are tuned into that animal and its behavior, what is happening with the animal. And that's very important not to lose sight of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, can you believe another hour just flew right by?
Oh, my.
Our conversations with you, Rochelle, are always exciting and definitely a great change of pace. So is there any last things that you wanted to say to everyone about transporting babies?
Well, not about transporting babies, but I just want to mention that I have been honored to be invited to speak at the Taiwanese AZA conference on welfare and animal transport, and I'm running a workshop, and I'm leaving Monday. So it's the first time I've ever been in Asia, and I'm very excited to meet as many people as I can and learn more about animal transport. And maybe, you know, I could do an article about it or something for your newsletter when I get back.
Oh, we would love that. Yeah. Are you taking any animals with you?
No, I was thinking of taking some plushes, but I decided not to. I'm trying to keep it to one big bag. They let me have two, but you know why? It takes 2.5 days to get there and a day and a half to come back. So I'm gonna be there like maybe 5 days. So I'll just get over jet lag, and then I come back and go through it again.
Well, congratulations. I know it's gonna be a very good workshop that you're developing for them, because you are top-notch, organized, and just anything she develops and organizes as far as a conference or a presentation is top-notch. So
thanks.
Yeah.
Great. I appreciate
it. Well, fantastic. Dr. Bryant, do you have any last words for everyone?
No, I'm happy you're here, Michelle. I wish you good luck with your travels. I know it's going to be outstanding with it, and just get back here safely and let us know all about it. Take some pictures too, please.
Oh, yes. I got a camera to take pictures with, so
good.
I'm going to definitely have some pictures.
No.
Wonderful. And I just wanted to remind everybody that we're not having our Facebook Live next Friday with Dr. Adam Chrisman. We will reschedule him sometime soon, but we look forward to seeing everybody in August. Stay cool, and if you need anything in regards to animal transportation, please reach out to Dr. Bryant, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Let's see, I pushed end.